Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one and welcome back to Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, where in the last episode I was doing a pretty good demonstration of exactly how to not play this game, because yes, it might look like XCOM, it's clearly been influenced by XCOM, but this is definitely not XCOM. Play this game in the same cautious way that you would play XCOM 2, and you'll get your ass handed to you. Also, I made a lot of stupid decisions, which didn't help. In today's video we're going to continue and conclude Operation Clusterfuck, and I'll show you even more examples of myself making very stupid decisions. And then hopefully, if there's time, although it may have to wait for the next video, we're going to show you how to do it right. So this is more or less where we left off in the last video. I know there are enemy reinforcements coming from this gate here, and I'm setting up multiple overlapping zones of Overwatch in order to deal with them, and feeling very clever about it. I then take Justicar Iolanthus and move him up here to deal with the last surviving cultist on this side. I've just seen that even a psychic boosted force melee attack is not going to kill this guy, so what I should have done, instead of running up here and alerting the nearby patrol and dragging them into the fight as well, was simply get him behind cover and shoot at him. And yeah, that wouldn't have killed him either, but it also wouldn't have dragged an extra patrol into the fight. So now I have fresh reinforcements coming in from two sides, although the Overwatch that I set up takes care of two of them. And I still have the live cultist standing right next to Justicar Iolanthus. Fortunately, the cover that I have taken here prevents me from taking any range damage. And while the initial cultist does get an attack in, and there is another patrol coming in from the other side, Justicar Iolanthus does get a reaction strike in and finishes off the last remaining of the original set of cultists. Now, my turn. I move Justicar Iolanthus down into half cover. It's time to use one of those grenades to break this attack up. It's not going to kill anybody, but well, it's going to knock them around and it's going to reduce most of them to low health. Oh, and in fact it did kill one of them, because environmental damage. The grenade knocked him down to a lower level and the fall killed him. So, I can kill this guy quite safely from cover. I don't have to rush up and get involved in the melee attacks. My concern now is that Purgator Tor here, yeah, that's really his name, is going to trigger a response from the patrol to the rear, so I can move him down to cover here, although that will drain all of his action points and he won't be able to attack this turn. But I figured better that than I drag another group of 4 or 5 cultists into the fight. Apothecary Han here has an easy melee kill against the one bad guy that made it through the Overwatch. And while I would love nothing more than to use an area of effect psychic attack on the remaining bad guys coming through the gate, that would push the warp counter up to 85%, which would guarantee a warp surge in the enemy's turn. So instead I just content myself with setting up another zone of Overwatch with his Storm Bolter. Now I'm going to do the same with Purgator Fool back here, but he's taking wounds, and if anybody shoots at him he doesn't have the benefit of the Terminator armor's additional armor value. So first the Aegis Shield, which does raise the warp counter to 80%, but it's only going up 15% every turn, so it still shouldn't trigger a warp surge. Then I reload his gun and set a second overlapping zone of Overwatch. And now it's the bad guys. So, what are they up to? I've thinned their numbers out a little. This patrol does have one cultist with a heavy stubber, and I have to say I am kind of impressed with the way the AI handles these problems, because he's now suppressed Purgator Tor, who is the guy best equipped to deal with a rush of plague cultists.
Strong we shall stand.
And the rest of them take some pot shots at Justicar Iolanthus, reducing his armour and inflicting light wounds, and then set up multiple zones of Overwatch on him, ensuring that if he does anything, he's going to get hammered in the next turn. The Poxwalker makes it through Apothecary Han's zone of Overwatch, and it's only Purgator Fool's zone of Overwatch that kills him, but when he dies, the corpse explosion goes off so close to Apothecary Han that he becomes inflicted with the Plagued effect, which is not good. The warp meter rises by 15% at the end of the enemy turn, which leaves it at 95%, which means that no matter what happens now, we're going to get a warp surge at the end of this turn. Possibly earlier if I use any psychic abilities. Half of the squad are pinned down by suppressive fire in Overwatch, and while I'd like to deal with the lone cultist who survived the initial assault through the gates, I absolutely need to free up Purgator Tor and Justicar Iolanthus. So, did you see what I did not do when I moved Purgator Thule up to this position? I didn't check to see whether or not he could actually hit anybody from there. You can do that by moving the mouse cursor up to where you want to send the Marine and then waiting to see if any lines extend from that position to any targets. And I didn't do that. So since I can't shoot anybody, and there's nobody in range of Overwatch, I pop his Aegis Shield. The warp meter is now at 100%. The only thing I can realistically do with Apothecary Han here... I mean, the warp meter's at 100% anyway, so it doesn't matter if I use any psychic abilities here. If I had a grenade, I would rush over to Justicar Iolanthus and break up that attack with a grenade and free up my two brothers, but I don't. So instead... I get a lucky crit, but even that's not going to be enough to kill this guy. I go for the stun. Unfortunately, I don't get an execute, but I do at least get the kill. Now what am I going to do with these two? You have a look at Purgator Tor's health bar. You can see that red portion shows you how much damage he's going to take if he tries to move or do anything offensive while under the effect of suppression and Overwatch. So all I can do is reload his weapon and or pop the Aegis Shield. And it's the same deal with Justicar Iolanthus. So Aegis Shield it is, I guess. Anything else is just going to get him killed, or at the very least severely wounded. So I give him some bonus armor, and I should have literally just done that and ended the turn, but instead I take a hit, effectively negating the Aegis Shield that I just popped and set up a counter Overwatch zone of his own, but that is all I can do.
My blade is
Nobody else can do anything without taking hits. Right, well, the Overwatch did take care of one of them, which is better than nothing, I guess. And now they're moving to flank us. Justicar Iolanthus takes even more hits. I wish they'd run up to him and try to engage him in melee so we'd at least get a reaction skill. I really need to get Apothecary Han over there because Justicar Iolanthus is in serious danger of going down here. He is heavily wounded. And once again, he's hurt, even more, and covered by multiple zones of Overwatch. Oh, and here comes the Warp Surge, so various different enemies are gaining beneficial mutations. It looks like they're all getting bonus range on their weapons. Well, that could have been a lot worse, but it's definitely not good. Right, my turn. Again, Iolanthus and Tor are pinned down by multiple zones of Overwatch. And I'm pretty sure I can't move Apothecary Han up to relieve Iolanthus without also moving him through the Overwatch. And once again, I move Purgator Tor up to a firing position without checking to see what he can actually hit from that firing position. Now, it's not that he's completely useless here. He can kill this guy, but a tremendous expenditure of willpower for one kill, and it's not even a useful kill. I mean, okay, the guy was in a flanking position, but he's not one of the ones keeping my two brothers pinned down with the Overwatch fire. So, since Purgator Thule can't do anything useful from that spot, I simply pop his Aegis Shield. Next, Apothecary Han, and sure enough, he just cannot give any aid to Justicar Iolanthus without either A, moving into Overwatch himself and therefore taking damage, and B, well, he just doesn't have enough action points to get there in the first place. On the bright side, for a change, I am at least checking the action point counter down by his portrait and ensuring that wherever I move him to, he's going to have one action point left over in order to do something when he gets there. Unfortunately, the only thing he can do is expend even more willpower to inflict a bleed on one of the two cultists. Now, this is not going to kill him, or it probably will, it just won't kill him this turn. We won't see the effect of the bleed until the cultist phase. I don't want to risk taking any further damage on these two guys, particularly Justicar Iolanthus. So instead, Aegis Shield up, and that's all I can really do. Enemy turn, let's just hope the Aegis Shield holds. Cultist number 1, the one with the bleed, first gets to act before the bleed takes effect. So he hammers some of that Aegis Shield down, then sets an Overwatch, and then promptly dies on the spot. So that's good. The second cultist batters his way through Apothecary Han's armour and inflicts some minor wounds. And then it's my turn. And finally, I can move the entire team. And this, by the way, is completely unnecessary. I could have killed this cultist in 2 regular hits. Instead, I trigger the Hammer Hand ability and buff it with a Force Strike. It gets the job done, but don't forget, we had a Warp Surge in the last turn. And since then, I've expended so much willpower that the warp meter is back up to 60% already, and now I have to hold out for 3 turns for extraction, with enemy reinforcements on the way. Let's get Justicar Iolanthus healed up at least. And then I figure, well, if there are reinforcements on the way, I need to get the boys dug in, so I commit yet another grievous error of judgment. I pop everybody's Aegis Shield, which is completely pointless for 2 reasons. 1, Aegis Shield only lasts until the end of your turn. I'm not under attack, so I don't need it. And 2, I have now guaranteed a Warp Surge on this turn, because I've raised the warp meter to 85%. In fact, hell, we're going to go for broke and raise it to 90, which means that with the 15% increase every turn, yes, we are now going to get another warp surge. Right when I don't need it. And this one is Grandfather's Curse, which is way worse than simply giving the enemy an extra 4 range on their auto guns. All of my knights suffer a -1 maximum willpower for the remainder of the entire mission. Now this could be seen as a bit of a blessing in disguise, because if I have less willpower to spend on psychic abilities, it limits the amount that I can continue to raise the warp meter, thereby triggering warp surges when I don't need them. But it's still not good. Now I definitely do not want to run into that patrol. Now the good news here, there hasn't been a lot of good news on this mission, but there is some. The good news is that the enemy side has a limit on the number of reinforcements that they can call. Now normally at this point in a mission, when you have to hold for extraction, any remaining reinforcements that the enemy team have would manifest in warp portals through which the reinforcements would be arriving. But I've already triggered so many reinforcements in this mission that the enemy have just run out. So all I had to do was keep running away from the patrol, and eventually the victory conditions triggered. It wasn't the most noble way to win a mission, but, you know, any mission you can limp away from is a victory in my book. Nevertheless, I don't think too many people would argue that that was not a textbook example of how to not play Chaos Gate. I did originally continue the campaign from this point, but before too long I realised that I needed to go for my 4th restart, this time incorporating the various hard lessons that I had learned from the very beginning. And the first 3 playthroughs, well, first of all, they weren't complete playthroughs, so they weren't a complete waste of time, because I rarely got further than this, but I also learned a lot of valuable lessons. The most important overall lesson was stop trying to play this game like XCOM 2, because it might look like XCOM 2 and it's obviously been influenced by XCOM 2, but it is very definitely not XCOM 2. And so with that, and a whole bunch of other lessons besides learned, I embarked on my 4th playthrough.
Our target appears to be the heart of a Hive World dockyard. Is it possible our prognosticators were mistaken?
Have some faith, Purifier. What better place is there than a busy transport hub to spread a mass infection?
You may have a point, Inquisitor. Brothers, seek for signs of the bloom and destroy any obstacle you find.
Right, so the mission objective for this one is nice and simple. Just eliminate all seed carriers. And the bonus objective, win the mission without any critical injuries, is also nice and simple. Critical injuries are just what happens when one of your Marines is reduced to 0 health. When that happens, the Marine doesn't die, at least not the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and sometimes 4th time that happens, because a Marine can be reduced to 0 health and suffer critical injuries a number of times equal to their resilience stat, which is usually 3 and sometimes 4, and I believe can be increased. But at the same time, in order to have a Marine reduced to 0 health, you have to screw up catastrophically, so the chances of it actually happening on a mission are very, very rare, unless you're incredibly bad. So I figure that's a fairly easy bonus mission objective to take. If you complete the bonus mission objectives, or the glorious deeds as they're known, you get bonus requisition points. You fail the bonus objective, or the glorious deed, and you lose requisition points. So it's a bit of a gamble, but in this case it's a pretty safe one. Because I have learned my lessons. Some of you may have already noticed one of the very important lessons that I've learned. When you initiate contact with a group of enemies, all of your action points get refreshed. So it's a bad idea to use all of your action points by moving a marine as far forward as they can go, because there's a chance that you will initiate contact with an enemy patrol. Now, while that marine will have all of his action points refreshed, he's now so far ahead of the rest of your marines that they can't actually offer any kind of support. So it's a far, far better idea to move your marines up just a little bit, like not there, because that will initiate contact with the patrol, but instead try to keep your marines together, so that when contact is initiated, everybody gets their action points refreshed, and everybody else is close enough to help. And that is a new type of enemy, a Plague Priest. Those guys are incredibly nasty, not because of what they do themselves, but because of the buffs that they can give to the other cultists with them. Like, for example, he's just given the cultist over there on the left of the bridge 3 points of armour, which is more than a marine in Terminator armour gets. There's another extremely nasty ability that they get, which thankfully he didn't do just now, but they have the ability to start channeling energy. And if that goes uninterrupted for one whole turn, they will trigger an instant warp surge. Regardless of the level that the warp meter is currently at. So needless to say, if you see one of them channeling a warp surge, you need to either kill them or interrupt them quick. Now here you can see that normally Apothecary Han's Stormbolter would be inflicting 5 damage, and that guy only has 5 health, but because he's at medium range and in half cover, it's only going to do 3 damage, which means the only actual effect that shooting at him is going to have is stripping away his armour and not actually causing any damage to the cultist himself. Now note that when I pick Purgator Thule and start moving the cursor around, down here indicates how many action points he will have remaining if I move him to the location under the cursor. So that lets me know whether or not I can actually do anything when I move him to the position that I want. So what can I actually do from here? Well, I can shoot at that fuel tank, and that's a very, very narrow bridge that these cultists are on. And that one shot's killed not just the Plague Priest, but 2 of the cultists with him, which means I now have 4 marines against 1 cultist who doesn't have any armour left. And there's absolutely no need to buff this attack with some psychic power, therefore increasing the warp surge meter, because I've got enough marines left to finish him off without doing that. I'll just have to shoot this guy from here with Justicar Ilanthus' Stormbolter. And we've taken care of the first group of cultists before any of them even got to fire a shot. So already things are starting to look better. There is a second patrol, or possibly that's the seed carrier, at the other end of this bridge. We're no longer in combat, so I can afford to take my time. And again, I'm not moving everybody as far forward as possible, because I don't want to initiate contact with one marine strung out way ahead of everybody else. Instead, I'm trying to make a habit of moving my rearmost marines forward first in order to keep them together as a squad, for what should hopefully be obvious tactical reasons. The warp meter is only at 15%, and I think the level of corruption on this world is low enough that it's only going to rise by 15% every turn, so plenty of margin for error there in the warp meter, allowing me to use the psychic abilities when I need them, without triggering a warp surge rather than just splurging them on unnecessary Aegis Shields. Okay, there's the seed carrier. And the seed carrier group is moving to the left. Now I'm not sure if that's the same contact that I picked up earlier over in that rough direction. I think it's a separate group, which means there's probably a patrol over there, and that seed carrier is moving towards the patrol. I just don't know where the patrol went. So I don't want to initiate contact with both groups at the same time, if at all possible. So I'm going to try to keep everybody on the left side of the screen which will hopefully allow me to bounce that patrol, if the patrol is still there, without dragging the seed carrier group in at the same time. So lots and lots and lots of cover between myself and the seed carrier group. So even if contact does get initiated with both groups, only one should be able to shoot at me. Moving my rearmost marine up, trying to maintain unit cohesion. Do I really? Yeah. Yeah, this should be good. Let's see if we can trigger contact here. And nope, nothing. If there was a patrol over there, I don't know where it went. So we'll keep moving everybody up again, trying to keep them all together. And there it is. And it's a pair of plague marines. And one of them's the seed carrier. So if there is a patrol here as well, and there probably is, because there's almost always more than one patrol, I don't know where they've gone. But they could get involved at any time if they come back and head in this direction, because they can't have gone far. Let's move Purgator Thule up. And I think I'm going to set a sanctified kill zone. This will bump the warp meter up to 55%, which is fine, but it's going to inflict the vulnerable state on these two guys, which will make it much less likely that they're going to be able to resist my attacks. Now, Interceptor Storm. And he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. But first, I'm going to use Honor the Chapter on him. This is one of Justicar Iolanthus' abilities, and it is an absolute game changer. What it does is allow your Justicars to target another Marine and give them additional action points. At the moment, it's given Interceptor Storm 2 additional action points for a total of 5 at the moment. Although with further training, it can give 3 action points and an extra point of willpower. With these bonus action points, Interceptor Storm is using his Teleport Strike ability, which allows him to teleport to a bunch of enemies, smack the shit out of them. Oh, that's where the patrol went. And then, because he still has 4 action points left, which means he's got 4 attacks, he's going to kill this guy. Didn't need to use any psychic powers to do it. And he's got 3 attacks left on this fella, and it's probably only going to take 2. He can kill the seed carrier without triggering a warp surge.
Commander. I trust your men to preserve some samples. Do return them to the Edict at once.
So, I now have to hold for extraction, and this is where all remaining enemy reinforcements arrive through the warp gates. I still haven't completed the glorious deed, but as long as I don't take any damage, that's going to happen. And there is also a patrol out there which could be heading in this direction. So you've seen just what kind of trouble I got into on previous missions whenever I had enemies coming in from all different sides. Just watch the difference this time. Now the enemies that come through the warp gates in the shape of reinforcements are usually not that tough. At the same time though, getting attacked from 2 or more different sides at the same time is usually never good. So Apothecary Han's going to set up some overwatch. And Justicar Iolanthus is the only Marine I have left with any available action points. So where can I move him to where he will still have 1 action point left? And unfortunately that's about as far as he can go. Well, that's just going to have to do. And he's going to set up Overwatch in this direction. And that's all I can do. So, now, enemy turn. The warp meter's going to rise to 95%. There are another 2 patrols over there. And here come the reinforcements through the warp gates. Lesser poxwalkers. Not a problem. Overwatch killed 2 of them. Who's coming through this gate? Poxwalkers again? Oh, no, that's actually bad news. That's a Plague Priest. The bloom rises, but only to 95%. No warp surge. Now I have to deal with a Plague Marine on one side, a Plague Priest on the other side, and potentially 2 patrols heading in this direction. Now with the warp meter at 95%, it means we are going to get a warp surge this turn whether I like it or not, so it doesn't really matter what psychic abilities I use, we're still going to get the warp surge. So, let's go for the teleport strike once again. It completely ignores line of sight, smacks the crap out of the Plague Priest, and we can finish him off. You know what? Yeah, we'll go for the Force ability, because it is going to kill him, and it doesn't matter if I trigger a warp surge. We're going to get one anyway. Next, I'm going to use the stratagem to give Interceptor Storm another 2 action points. So he's easily going to be able to finish off the other cultist. Because I really don't want him setting up Overwatch. Again, I buff the attack with some psychic points. Doesn't matter. Warp meter's at 100% anyway. Let's put him into cover. Still got that Plague Marine to deal with. Heavy weapon support in the shape of Purgator Fool is too far away to be of any use. You can see the cursor in this position. The line extending from that position to the Plague Marine shows me that he can shoot at the Plague Marine if I were to move him there, but he doesn't have enough action points to move up there and shoot. However, Justicar Iolanthus can use on the chapter again to give Purgatory Fool an additional 2 action points. Now you might be thinking, why not just use Apothecary Han? He's right there. He is, but Purgator Fool is out in the open, and there are potentially 2 patrols coming this way that I do not want to initiate contact with. So I want to make sure he's got enough action points to not just be standing there with his ass hanging in the breeze if a patrol turns up and sees him. I moved Justicar Iolanthus up to get some Overwatch going, because that's really all I can do with him. But Apothecary Han has grenades. And you know what grenades do, don't you? It's not going to kill him. But the blast and the knockback is. And now I just have to hold out for extraction. And I'm reminded of something that happened during my last job in the Royal Navy, where I worked for the Admiralty Interview Board. The AIB is the organisation in the Royal Navy that assesses civilians who want to be potential Royal Navy, Royal Naval Reserve or Royal Marine officers, and they do that over the course of a week by subjecting them to various different leadership tests, some theoretical, some practical. Every now and then they change the tests, and when they do that, they test them out on us, the members of the AIB staff, so we get to play at being potential officer recruits. Here comes the patrol. Actually, here come both of the patrols, and I have no interest in fighting them, and I'll explain why. So, the leadership task that we were testing out involved us role-playing a bunch of midshipmen who'd been sent from their ship, docked 30 miles away on a camping expedition. We had basic medical supplies, camping equipment, food, and a Land Rover. The mission was to get back to the ship by 1200 on the Monday morning. Along the way, we encountered all kinds of civilian emergencies, which we dealt with, and failed the mission, because we took so long doing that we couldn't get back to the ship by 12 o'clock on the Monday. I didn't need to fight all of those enemies, I just needed to hold out for extraction, and that's exactly what I did. And I completed the mission without any of my Marines taking so much as a scratch. In fact, none of them even got shot at. So that's the glorious deed. That's a whole bunch of requisition points, which I'm going to use to take all kinds of mastercrafted weapons and armour. Not sure about the heavy flamer, I'm unlikely to use it, but you know what the hell. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And then promotions, although mostly just for, Interceptor Storm, because he basically got almost all of the kills. And I'm going to use his promotion points to further buff the damage of his teleport strike, because it's an amazing ability. So yeah, bit of a contrast there between the first mission and the second one. I think we can safely say that lessons were learned. And I'm now feeling much better about my chances of success for the campaign as a whole. And I hope you've all enjoyed the video, because that is it for today. As always, be pure, be vigilant, behave.